You're listening to 95.6 One Ummah FM, sponsored by After the Accident. 24 hours a day. Call us on 0118 926 9993. 131 Wokingham Road, Reading. It's no accident. People use after the accident.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to One Ummah FM. You've been listening, obviously, I'm sure with bated breath for the last couple of weeks, wondering what's happened to the pundits. And as always with good things, they're short and sharp and they appear now and again. So the pundits are back after Ramzan. We did have a Ramzan show. We obviously weren't there during Ramzan that often, apart from the one show as I mentioned. I'm sure you missed our bi-weekly shows prior to that, but the good news is, and there's a bit of good news I want to share with you, and actually I say good news, you may not think it's good news, you might think it's bad news, but the point is we're back on the airwaves, inshallah. The pundits are back. We should be in our regular slot every 2 weeks, every fortnight on a Monday at 8 o'clock, and it being Pakistani timing. When I say 8 o'clock, of course it could slip to 8:15 as we're seeing here, but our excuse of Salat al-Maghrib, alhamdulillah, we did that. We're in the studio, inshallah, and we're raring to go. So I'm very happy to be joined after Ramzan and back in the studio with the regular pundits today. So I'm bringing them in a little while, but I've got Amr with me, I've got Shuja and I've got Shabazz, and they're sitting across from me in the studio, giving me a little grin. So they're raring to go as well, inshallah. But on behalf of all the pundits, let me just say very quickly, a very hearty and very late Eid Mubarak from us, inshallah. Hopefully you had a very peaceful and very enjoyable time with your families. And wasn't it nice? Wasn't it a bit of a miracle? Because Eid was on the same day, obviously not the same day in the UK. Pakistan, continuing that late theme that I just mentioned, decided to go with the day after, but we'll kind of, we'll leave it at that and not get too much involved in the whys and wherefores. It just being good enough that at least we had Eid on the same day. So you are listening to the Armchair Punditz, as I said, going out to you on One Ummah Radio 95.6 FM. You know the format of the show by now, so we do want to get you guys involved, inshallah. If you're listening to the discussion and you want to add, you want to get involved, you are more than welcome to do so. So you can do that on the phone line, which is 0118 975 8300. That's 0118 975 8300. If you want to be a little bit anonymous, feel free. You can text us in 07909 567 527, 07909 567 527 for any text messages that you have during the show, inshallah. So, okay, that's the kind of spiel that I wanted to give at the beginning of this show. What will we be discussing? Well, today's going to be quite an interesting one, I think, because we're going to be talking a little bit about careers and jobs and have a discussion around workplace issues. Very timely, I think. So if you're one of those people that's maybe finished your college course recently, you graduated from university maybe a couple of months ago, maybe you're between jobs, you're looking to apply around, then I wouldn't quite say we're the right place to come to. This is not, those agony aunt columns you get in the newspapers or online, they give you advice. We're not quite agony aunts or agony uncles, anything like that. We're not going to give any specific advice, but what we'll do is we'll have a little pundits discussion as we always do, a little bit light-hearted, but we're going to touch on some general things, inshallah, that might be useful for you to listen in on. And again, as always, as I just mentioned, if you want to get involved and pick us up on something or add something or give us an example, feel free to do that. I've given out the numbers earlier. But we want to be able to give you a little bit of a general kind of flavour about, careers, jobs, advice, maybe have a discussion, give some examples from the pundits and their experience on this, and then we'll, as we always do, we'll expand that out later on in the show. But enough babbling from me. Before I get started, I'm going to bring in the pundits so that you can, inshallah, hear their sweet, fantastic voices on the airwaves. So, assalamu alaikum, brothers.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair for that, guys, inshallah. So, let's kick off then with this discussion, inshallah. I said careers advice and jobs advice. Let's be very specific at the beginning, okay? I want to think about the situation where somebody is applying for work, okay? So you're kind of between jobs, or maybe you're young and you just started out on the road to work, maybe your first job you're applying for. What kind of tips, advice, examples can the pundits give to somebody who's applying for work, applying to jobs? What kind of things would come to the top of your head here? Anything at all, shout it out, and don't give me those vacant looks at the moment where you're rolling your eyes and wondering what to say. I mean, there must be some advice that we'd want to impart to our listeners here.
First thing I'd say is don't give up, because there's hundreds, and there's I think, what was the latest count, 1.1 million people out of work, so
right.
You're one of a few that would be out of work. So if you don't succeed in the first time, you're going to be, so they say that is about over 100 people for each job.
Right.
So you aren't going to get every job that you apply for. So if you don't get the first time, just don't give up and just carry on.
Okay, don't give up. Keep plugging away. Anything else, guys, comes to mind? So, I mean, don't give up. It's interesting you just said there about the issue of maybe 1 million people or 2 million people, whatever, at any one time out of work. And obviously, right now we're in this very long recession, which is every time you read a newspaper report or something to do with the economy, they pull out some kind of stat or the other that says that we may just be coming out and we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel. But reality is actually things aren't particularly buoyant. Having said that, let's say the jobs market is not too bad. So the first thing is a very general thing. Stay confident, stay focused, and don't give up. Anything else that you'd want to add into that comes to mind?
I think although there's this doom and gloom, go out there with a positive outlook.
Be positive, okay.
If you think positive, hopefully, inshallah, you'll have a positive outcome as well.
Okay, inshallah. All right.
I think you've got to be a bit more open to offers in different fields as well.
Yeah.
And some people get stuck in saying, well, I want this, I want to be a banker or accountant or whatever sort of thing. But you need to have an open mind and have maybe try something different as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
There's a lot of opportunity out there as well. There's the employment level, as Shajat mentioned before, the levels are quite still high as well, but there is an opportunity for everybody to get a job, but you need to have an open mind and have the door open to other fields as well.
Alright, so I mean, what I would say to that, Jazakallah guys, I'd agree with that, and what I'd say is, the very first thing probably, if you're out there and you're looking for a job, as the guys have said, it can get you down a little bit, so we've got to realise, from the perspective of Islam, alhamdulillah, the trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay, because at the end of the day, the rizq is from Allah azza wa jal, so that rizq is fixed, that provision is fixed, okay, so really the onus on us is not to increase or decrease the rizq or something. It's not as if we're going to directly impact that. The onus on us is we've got to put effort in. That's all that Allah ta'ala expects from you, is you make the effort. So that's the first thing. So when you know that kind of gives you that reassurance that at the end of the day, whatever is written for me, I can't change it, will come to me, inshallah. So then that comes and ties in very much, as we said, remaining confident and being focused. I think the other thing the guys have said as well, they've hinted at, is that you should be realistic, because there are a lot of people out there who are applying for jobs, and I think the average time as well is quite high. I mean, I remember when I graduated many moons ago, even then it was around about a year for a graduate to get a job, okay, that's a year, and so you're going to find that, okay, it's not going to be necessarily your first, second, or 10th, or 15th application. You might find it's quite a way down. I have no idea that stat has changed, and whether now a year has gone up to 18 months, but it is in the order of months, if not years, the average amount of time for you to get a job. I also say here, based on what the pundits have said, that you've got to be very practical. Okay, so don't daydream, don't keep putting it off. You've actually got to sit down, get focused, and get things done. Get some experience on your CV, maybe volunteer. If I can't get a job right now, let me volunteer, so that way at least it looks good, I've got something down on the CV, and people can see that I've made some effort, and that gives you some good experience. And maybe by volunteering, you get a bit of a taster of work life, and maybe it's something you want to do in the future as well. The last thing I've just mentioned quickly before we move on is look, network. Okay, network like crazy. That's how it works today. There's so many social network sites, but forget your Facebooks and whatever. Network with people that you know, with friends, family, and they will always come across opportunities, and they'll help you get your foot in the door. And again, I think the guys mentioned, I don't know if Ahmad or Shajat or someone mentioned this, Shabazz, be prepared to take a lower paid job, because it's all about getting your foot in the door and then moving on. So, okay, there's a few little general tips, very vague, things that are very common sense, inshallah. Let's talk about the main thing, which I think for somebody who's a job seeker, and that is preparation. Alright, I think preparation is the main thing. So, where would you look first? Well, as well as looking for job hunting, newspapers, online, different websites, you want to prepare your CV. So any tips from your experience, or just general tips you picked up about preparation of the CV? What kind of things should be on there, what kind of things maybe shouldn't be on there? Is there a particular format, guys? Does it really make any difference? What maybe does the interviewer look for? Anything there that you
think the main one definite thing, I think it falls in line with our religion as well, is try and be honest.
Okay.
What do they say? White lie. You always get caught out in the end.
Eventually. Okay.
So, and it's funny. I was speaking to someone the other week, European person who's looking for a job, and they put photos on their CVs. I've sieved through many CVs, and I think photos are a big no-no, especially in the UK, because it allows a person to judge you before they've actually met you.
That's interesting. Okay, let me just pick you up on that, Shabazz, because before we move on, because that's what the traditional thinking I always heard was, don't have a photo on your CV, right? And this is where I need you guys to come in and tell me what you think, because you're kind of saying that it makes sense not to do it. Yeah, I would argue a lot of people now, if not on the CV, certainly on sites like LinkedIn or social networking sites have photos anyway, and some of them will reference that. And actually, if I was an employer and I get a CV up and it's got my name on there, Joe Blogs or whatever, the first thing I do is I do a Google search or a LinkedIn search for that person anyway. So what do you feel about that then? And do you think it's still better not to have it, or is it kind of 50-50, or does it depend on the job role?
Well, it can depend on the job role as well. I think you can look at it in one sense of it is if you put your name down, you can be judged by your name as well.
Right.
That's counteracting a bit of racism, not of direct racism, you know what I mean?
Go straight in there, but it's
well, you got to get to the point. Well, if your name can give it away as well. So if you can put your name on there saying, Ahmed Ghulam, like myself, I think Asian guy sort of thing.
Yeah.
So having a photograph is not there. They can actually visualise the picture because your face might fit the bill.
Yeah, sure.
But that side of it, I don't think it's an issue putting a photograph of something different. Okay. People want people with different skill, different ideas. Okay. Having a plain old CV there, name, whatever your experiences you've done, and sometimes you get bored of it, but having a photograph there, maybe something different, so this guy's different, he's something about this guy, and that photograph, that image, it stays in that person's mind.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Amber, because, again, I disagree with you, and it won't be the first time today or ever.
Bring it on.
Right. So, you say
easy guys, let's not get into a big fight here. Let's keep it civilised.
Okay, just for example, say the guy, he's fully qualified, should get the job of merit. Then on the flip side, there's another guy or another girl is more, say, attractive than the person who's not as qualified, and he gets a job just because he looks better than the other person. His face fits.
Kind of what you're saying is give less ammunition to the potential employer to. I mean, you're obviously trusting them, but you're hoping that you give them less room for them to potentially discriminate on that basis. Obviously, in reality, we know that if they're really being theoretically following the line, they shouldn't be discriminating anyway, right? Regardless of how they look or name or whatever.
But it happens, we know that.
It happens, okay, there's going to be a certain amount, but anyway, okay.
Possibly increases that chance.
Would it not be all around the Shabazz as well, where if you could, let's say, you put a photo on there which showed you very kind of suit boot gear, looking very slick and stylish and looking very professional, and they're looking for that kind of person. And maybe also, because sometimes if you're scanning through CVs, okay, you're going to have your date of birth in there, right? Not everyone's going to necessarily look at that and then figure out how old you are, whatever. Whereas if you've got like and again, maybe if it's better, it's easier if you're younger. You can show that, I'm quite young and I'm energetic, motivated kind of guy. Would it not also work in that regard? Would it be positive as opposed to negative?
I don't think you should have your date of birth either. Really?
Is there anything you should put on the CV here?
I think you should keep it as basic as possible. So your name, where you live, how to contact you.
What you got to remember is people, when you go for positions, people want something different, something they can bring to the company for whatever reason it is. Yeah. Bringing a A4 size paper in black and white, blah, 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 blah. Half the time, you know for a fact, it'll be there, look at it, bin. Right. Look at it, bin. But they want somebody to stand out. And I'm not saying just the photograph side of it. Maybe something in bold, something there is visually there they can see. Photographs is one of them, or someone else is one of them, which physically can see. Because 9 times out of 10, if you got applying for someone's paying for 100 applications for a job, they're going to skim it. Yep. And sometimes they don't even skim it.
They do skim it very often. Okay, so you're going to figure out different.
So what you're saying is, Amber, put in rainbow colours. And let's make it
I'm not saying anything.
There's got to be some common sense. We come on to that. I mean, I think at the moment what we're discussing is, so the general point about having a CV that stands out or looks different, I accept. Obviously, there's got to be some common sense. We'll come on to that now, inshallah. But just before we do that, the specific about the photo, it looks like the guidance from the pundits is a little bit kind of 50-50, so we're not sure. Maybe it depends on the job. And by the way, if there's any potential employers out there that are listening in, and you've got a CV and all it's got on there is like 2 lines, that's probably Shabazz, I suppose. There's nothing else. Shujat, did you want to come in with anything
just that point on photos and when people start networking, they say latest study I've seen from the GSS, which is the Global Solutions Services, which is part of the DWP, they say 30%, which is the highest percentage of people get jobs through networking.
Yeah, okay.
So like you mentioned before about Facebook, not Facebook but LinkedIn, and that's one of the examples that we're using. So nothing's actually safe when it comes to your photo. You have a photo on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's nothing safe. Someone does a Google search, an employer, looks at it through Muhammad and sees him dancing about in his skimpy and hardly anything, he's not going to want to employ him, is he?
I hope not. Yeah, exactly. But that's a wider point, though. Actually, we're going off on a slight tangent there, but that's the new generation, certainly, I think, and people now that are applying have to be aware of is, don't forget the amount of information that you're putting out there on the web, basically, and the fact that employers will now, many of them, make an effort to do a bit of search to get background information. So the rule of thumb that I would suggest is, don't have anything on the net anywhere which you wouldn't want a prospective employer to see, to be quite honest with you. Is that a fair point?
Right.
Right, okay, very good. Alright, let's get back to the CV, guys. Okay, let's forget about the photo, right? Okay, maybe yes, no, we're not quite sure. So we maybe managed to confuse the listeners there. Actually, if you've got a view on it, maybe you've actually had a CV with a photo in, or vice versa. Maybe you agree with Shabazz and think you shouldn't have it in. Feel free to text in, give us some examples from your own experience, inshallah. What should be on the CV, though, guys, right? Because we talk about emphasis. So yeah, I agree with Amber. It should be a bit different, okay? Because it shouldn't be one of the mill. How do I know it's different? What kind of advice can we give? Maybe get third parties, family, friends, critical look at it? Anything else? Maybe online, is there any kind of resource available for this kind of stuff? And what should you emphasize on CVs? What kind of basic things should be on a CV?
I've lucky enough, or not lucky enough, to gone through a restructure at my old employers. Okay. So we've had loads of training about what is a good CV and how to stand out in the job market.
Let's hear it then. Let's give us a few pointers then.
First of all, when we Amber come on to the point about they're just going to skim your CV, that's true from the different people who trained us. And you only have, I think, between 5 and 10 seconds for any employer to look at your CV. Okay, so I take his point about it has to stand out.
Yep.
And there was an example of this one person in, I think in the publishing or marketing or something.
Right.
He couldn't get a job. He was out of work for about a year.
Yeah.
He was sick and tired of getting rejection after rejection after rejection. So what he did, he went outside Fleet Street and had a big, massive billboard saying, "I want a job, please employ me." Yeah. He went down at the rush hour in the morning and then in the afternoon, and to some people they thought, what is this prat doing? He just looks desperate. But actually he got over, I think, 10 people actually wanted to interview him, and he actually took a good, well-paid job, six-figure job in somewhere in Fleet Street because of he was different. He done something that was, not run-of-the-mill.
Yep.
He stood out. And I'm not saying that, Joe Boggs goes out and starts, going outside, I know, a co-op, or if they want to work in a factory, go and put a billboard saying, "I'm here ready to employ." But if you want to stand out, you need to do something a bit different.
I need to think about it. I mean, that I agree with that. The only thing is, you got to be a little bit balanced, I think, in what you do, and it also depends on who you're targeting, because some firms or some employers will actually frown on that, others will actually look at it as very good. I had a similar example where I think it actually worked, and I don't know the accuracy of this, but a magazine or something, where some chap who wanted to get a job, he researched the employer, and he managed to get the name of the specific person who would make that decision and who would potentially be interviewing, and he then actually sent some correspondence. He actually sent them a shoe in a parcel, right? And so when this guy at the firm, he got his post through, and he got a parcel, he opened it up, and there's a shoe there, and a note saying, "Now that I've got my foot in the door, can we talk some more?" And obviously that person, whoever it was, thought it was a fantastic bit of thinking outside the box. So yeah, great stuff. This guy's obviously creative, just what we need. But I can see maybe a few, maybe legal type firms, or the older types who may not be so keen on getting something like that.
Well, you go look at just give you an example. You've got The Apprentice, yeah?
Okay.
Alan Sugar, or Lord Sugar, wherever he is now, they keep saying basically they want something different, something who the people who are energetic, people who are hungry to do something in their lives to be successful. That's where we're going at the moment, and I think people who are just qualified, got their degrees, need to be in that situation. They need to be adventurous, need to be creative, and need to have something different. And that's what people need. That's what people want on their CVs. I'm not saying the CV needs to be flowery and that kind of thing, but you need to have the relevant information in bullet points, like your qualification. Everyone knows we can read and write, but it's all about history. Can you do the job?
Yeah.
What are you going to bring to our firm? Because if you're going to apply for a particular role, you need to have the expertise in the role. What can you do with this?
Absolutely.
These things are going to be out there, which are going to give you the upper hand on the other applicants. Like we said, if they're going to be skilled, they might be able to chew you on. Well, hold on a second. We're looking for someone like that. That little thing, that one word, could change anything. That one word could get you the job.
All right. So what you're saying is emphasize your strengths, and pick on those things relevant to the application. So actually, it makes sense in a way. If you are going to have a CV, you could even have different CVs which are slightly different, so you tailor it for a particular application that you're going for. I would say don't go overboard. So maybe 2 slides is probably enough. You don't want to have like a 10-page CV because that's going straight in the bin. On the other side, you don't want to do Shabaz's job and have 2 lines in the so Shabaz. I'm joking. You've got to be around about right. So 1 to 2 slides is okay. What I've also found people suggest is having a summary section. Is that useful, guys, so that the person can maybe look at very quickly what you are without going into the details?
There's the bit about the personal profile or the summary or whatever. There's different names for them.
Right.
Try and tailor that to the job that you're applying for. So if that job role says we need someone with I don't know, secretarial experience, try and encompass that in your personal profile. So then you stand up. So they say, oh, he's read the profile, and he actually fits the bill. That's one thing I've been told that you have to. It's a good idea to actually, tailor your personal profile. You have to tailor the other part of the CV, but the profile is the bit what's going to get read first. And then even if they skim that, you only got, they say, about 20 to 30 words in that. Try and put as many of the words that are in the advert that they're looking for within your personal profile, but make sure it reads right, not just bullet points.
So that summary section is the hook in to get the person to read the rest of your CV. Basically, that's what I'm saying. The other hooks will be things like actually having it neat, tidy. Obviously, there's lots of don'ts, right? Make sure you spell check. Make sure you get the grammar right. These are basic things that you know. Make sure that if you've got funky graphics, funky's too strong, but if you've used like a slightly different CV to as Ahmed and the guys have said, to make it stand out, that it's not a garish colour scheme, that the tables you've used are formatted correctly, all that kind of stuff. That's common sense, you know that anyway. I would also say that actually, keep in mind who you can put down as referees, and this is actually such a basic thing, a common thing.
Uncle down the road.
Don't put Uncle G down the road just because you worked for him for a month in his corner shop, because that ain't going to work, because maybe Uncle G doesn't know English in the first place.
Why corner shop?
Well, whatever shop. I mean, I'm not sure. Generalisation is the first thing that came to my mind, guys. Very innocent stereotype. Oh dear, right.
We'll be on the show next week.
I've stirred up a hornet's nest here. Pundits. Obviously, it's a subject that's close to your heart, corner shops or whatever. Or maybe we should do that on one of the shows, inshallah, but not right now. But no, be sensible. Put down referees that you've got a decent relationship with, and that actually can talk about that particular role you're applying for and your experience. Not tell somebody who you met once on your trip in Egypt or something who really cannot help at all. So be very realistic on these kind of things.
So I think what Muhammad was saying there is put down a referee that will give you a good reference.
Well, that's a common sense. You don't want someone who's going to give you a bad reference and say,
I know what he's talking about.
So okay, do you want to hear some examples here, or do we want to switch to talk about something else? So that's a little bit of advice on CVs. There's a little bit, inshallah. Also, I would say, actually, one thing we haven't said is lots of potential CV templates available online. Okay, so lots of these. Yeah, sure. And we've got questions coming into the studio as well. So let's hear it.
Someone actually give you a bad reference? I thought by lawyers.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know.
I don't think they can give you a bad reference. There's quite a few legal cases where people didn't get the job or thought they didn't get the job because of a bad reference, and they did take them to court and they didn't get the job, but they got some damages from that.
Sure.
So I think most organisations don't actually give bad references. They just give a basic reference, which is this person worked here from here to here, this was his job role, and this was 6 years record, and they keep it as blunt as that.
Okay.
If they didn't want to jeopardise themselves and be open to legal challenges.
So in theory, Jazakallah, I hope that question actually clarified something. So in theory, referees should not be giving you a bad reference. However, maximise your chances and go for the referees that will give you a good reference.
Just to clarify Sajad's point, I think they can't give you a bad reference, but they can in turn just not give you a reference, just give a generic.
Sure.
Mr. Hussain worked here for 6 months and he attended every day.
Yeah.
As generic as that.
Okay.
But that at the same time as well,
at the same time with that as well, if you read between the lines, the other can put it 2 and 2 together, think, hold on a second, has got much very good things to say about this guy.
Yeah, in the ideal scenario, you want a glowing reference. And,
of course, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So that's something else to be aware of. As I said, we haven't got time to get into this. It's not a CV skill shop. We're just giving some general, rudimentary, pundit, informal type advice here, and just talking about our experience and stuff. I would say the final point I mentioned just before we went into the question about clarifying references and referees was there is a lot of resource now available online as well. So CV templates is something worth investigating. You find software sometimes comes with some preloaded templates. I would actually suggest the best thing is to network friends and family and find out CV templates that have worked or that you think are good, not just go for a bog standard on the internet on the basis that a lot of people may be doing the same thing and therefore you're not really going to stand out from the crowd. Alright, preparation was the key thing. We talked about CV preparation. Interview questions, because everyone gets nervous when it comes to interviews. Alright, no one seems to enjoy interviews. So how do you prepare for that allegedly or possibly awkward interview, guys? Any tips there?
Well, I think the most important thing is make sure you find as much information as possible about the job you're applying for. That's
right. Okay,
ultimate question there. Because if you're not knowing what the role is, then you're digging your own grave there.
Yeah.
That's one point I would definitely put forward. I'm sure Shabazz got something else.
I think you can't underestimate the preparation and work that goes in even before you get into the interview room.
Yeah.
So I would say get there as early as you can.
Okay.
And plan your route. Dress smartly. They say the first impression is the best impression you make.
Okay.
So
very good.
Dress smartly. Get your hair cut if you've got hair. Fortunate to have hair, should I say? And try and make it as best first impression as you can.
How do you control nerves? Everyone gets nervous, and it has a different effect on people. If I'm very honest with you, your presenter here on the Pundit Show, when he gets nervous, if I have an interview or anything else, I tend to find myself going to the gents very often. Okay, maybe it's just me. So how do you deal with those nerves? How do you deal with the clammy handshake, the fact that your hands are sweating? Maybe this is the dream role you always wanted to. Is there any technique, anything that you can mention? Maybe a mental thing, is it? A psychological thing?
I think it is a psychological thing, but as long as you're confident in your own ability, and interviewers, 9 times out of 10, they've done many interviews and they've seen so many applicants, so they're going to try putting you at ease because they've seen most of the people that come through their door are nervous.
Yep. Okay. I mean, I'd say it's psychological myself because, well, at the end of the day, as we said at the beginning of the show, you put your trust in Allah Azza wa Jal, yeah? So, we put our trust in Allah Ta'ala. Whatever is written is going to happen, inshallah. Yeah. And that for the Muslim should put you at ease because you know that really you're just there to do the best you can. Alhamdulillah, whatever happens is written, so it's not a big issue for you. I also think the other thing is that it's a kind of a technique that has kind of helped me previously, and that is that I mentally think I'm interviewing that person. Right, or I'm having a discussion. I don't treat it as an interview. So you find you relax naturally. You have your coffee in there, and as you said, modern techniques. The idea for the interviewer is to make you feel as relaxed as they can, so they get the best out of you. So you kind of go in there, and you've got two mindsets. One is that it's kind of not informal, but it's a discussion. And secondly, that you feel I've got questions, and I want to interview them. And actually, that's correct. Because interviews is a two-way process. You want to make sure, as much as you're the right fit for them, they are the right fit for you. Is that a sensible approach? Does that ring a bell with you guys?
Yeah, I think it's down to confidence as well.
Yeah.
How confident you have, and the more experience you've got in interviewing, or and older you get, the more confidence you get as a person as well. But like I said, if that works for yourself, it is an opportunity that if you're a good talker, good communication skills, you could put that stuff in that scenario, then it can work. Absolutely, yeah.
Is that sorry, Shujat, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, just before you go off the point, I'm feeling that you're going to go to the next point really quickly. Is prepare for the common questions. So, like, why do you want to work here? What attracted you to this employer and such and not. So make sure you do your research beforehand, which you guys have touched on. But also prepare for competency-based questions. And the one tip I've been told is use the STAR approach, which is look at the situation, the task, the action, and the result. So always picture that in your head.
See what you've done there, STAR, very clever.
Yeah, so that's a common thing used, acronym used, but try and practice that. So when they do ask you questions, always have 2 or 3 scenarios in your head when they ask you. So if you're going for a job as, I don't know, a project manager, they're going to ask you, give us an example when you had to actually project manage something. So have an example ready. Don't don't make out as if you've, got on a piece of paper and you're reading word for word, but kind of have some scenarios in your head that you can use with the question if the question does arise.
Okay, so make sure you're prepared. You've done the research, as the guys have said, into the job role, the company. You know the standard kind of interview questions. They're very common as well, and some of them we've mentioned here. Definitely prepare for them, inshallah. Prepare for specific questions, because if you've submitted a CV application, there are going to be certain things on there that may pick up. So whatever's on your CV, make sure you can back it up, make sure you can go into more detail and talk about it. And also, I think very important, have questions for them. Okay, now don't go over the board, because you can't monopolize the interview, but you need to have 2, 3, 4 questions which are common sense questions and which show them that you are genuinely interested in the role, you're interested in your development, where the company and yourself will be. So that's very important. I want to throw something to you guys, because when I was interviewing, before I've been to various interviews, all the way through from university and so forth, you hear some scare stories, and one of the common ones is the good cop, bad cop. People say to you, watch out, because you're going to go for an interview and there's going to be some guy in there and he's going to try and just trip you up, and the other person there is going to be very nice to you and they're trying to get you off guard. Is there any truth in that? Have you guys experienced it? Does that still happen?
I haven't experienced it myself, but from friends, speaking to friends, it does come across.
Really? Okay.
Yep, I think it does. Actually, it's happened to people within the organisation I work in at the moment. I think it's just to test your competency, how you handle pressure. The interviewer probably knows that you're a fairly valuable candidate.
Right.
They wouldn't have invited you to the interview anyway. Why waste their time as well as yours?
Yeah.
So just trying to test you in different situations, I think.
Okay, alright. But again, so the approach with that would be the same fundamental preparation, and I suppose if you're relaxed, you know somebody's maybe playing a little bit of hardball with you, you can figure out that's the bad cop. Is you still just you're very relaxed and you answer that question as you would. I mean, I heard some funny stories, some very, very quirky ones. People saying, for example, you walk into an interview and literally as you open the door and go into the room, they throw a ball at you. And if you catch the ball, they're happy with you and the interview goes very nicely and they're going to be easy on you. If you drop the ball, it's pretty much, doesn't matter what you say, you're going to be out. That surely is a bit of an exaggeration, am I right?
I think most Pakistanis would be snookered, especially our cricket team and catcher.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, maybe not a good thing. But these are kind of funny stories here. Maybe more so for college, university, less so for work. I'd hope so anyway, especially given what we've said about modern interview techniques, where the idea is to really get you relaxed and give you the best opportunity to perform. Okay, the very last thing on interviews then is what we said about CVs as well, and that is be genuine. That really is very, very important. Don't feel, I mean, you can be creative with what's on your CV and be creative with what you say, but there are red lines there, so don't come up with something which essentially is a bit of a fib, because interviewers are very skilled and they know how to get that out of you. So I'd say, however tempting it is for you to try and over-elaborate your skill set to match a particular job, be careful, stick with the honesty. That is the best policy, quite apart from the fact that Islamically you shouldn't really be coming out with white lies anyway. Shuja, you wanted to say something on that?
Just find that your body language, you don't want to be slouching in your chair and trying to, you can be given the best answers you possibly can, but if you're slouching in your chair, who's going to want to employ you? Okay. So body language is a big thing that you should be practicing, and make sure you give a firm handshake, you sit straight, you look at the interviewer in the eye but not stare them out.
Okay,
because you don't want to be doing that. No, don't freak them out. But yeah, so body language does play a big part, so just practice that and make sure
I think it's quite good what you said there with the handshake. A lot of interviewers now play a lot of emphasis on the handshake. Some people, I've heard some horror stories of some people saying they had too much of a hard grip. Some say it was too soft a grip.
Right.
Some even, I don't know, in some cultures they don't even want you to shake their hand. They just want you to walk in and sit down.
Okay,
it's an interesting one about the handshake.
So maybe worth being mindful of that. But generally, as the guys have said, be confident, dress well, preparation again. That's what we're talking about, preparation. That really is the biggest thing. And on the honesty point, I would say this, as well as being honest, because quite rightly you shouldn't be putting down lies on your CV or stuff or anything like that. But secondly, actually being honest can work in your favour, and very often does work in your favour, because it shows, firstly, your person is professional and has integrity, and secondly, if you're honest and you say, okay, actually, you know what, on my CV there's a bit of a gap, maybe I haven't learned that particular programming language, maybe I don't have project management skills to the 6 years or 5 years experience that you want, maybe I'm very young and I'm starting out, but I'm willing to learn. So you've got to emphasise the fact that you're adaptable, and this again links back to the voluntary work. If you can show that you made effort prior to coming for that application and prior to coming for that job role that you're interviewing for, you know, you've gone and you've hoping, you may be working for a charity, you may be working in a shop, but you're building up experience, that actually I find looks very good for you, and it shows a potential employer that you are the right kind of person, you've got the right mindset. Yeah, okay. What about rejections then? So we've done all this preparation, people out there thinking, well, you make it sound so easy, guys, you do a bit of preparation, you get the right CV, and you fire off the application, and alhamdulillah. The reality is that you're going to get rejections, right? There's very few people get a job role with the first application they've done. How do you handle rejection?
Ask for feedback. If you do, if they, you know, when they're going to ring you back or email you, you know, however they got the employer let you down gently, you'd hope, is ask for feedback to find out what was, you know, why did you fail to get that job? What was it that you didn't demonstrate? What is there experience? Is there like a conviction on the interview, or was your CV not as strong as the other candidates? They aren't going to say, you know, that candidate was much better, or, you know, you were much worse, but they'll give you some pointers. So take them on board and actually build that into the next time you have an interview. And if there is a matching skill set that you're missing, try and get some more experience. Like you said, the government has done quite a lot. Well, they said they did a lot for internships and trying to get interns and apprenticeships in the workplace. So try and look out for those and try and get those opportunities to build up your experience and also build up your skill set.
So that's very practical in terms of, you know, ask for feedback and so forth. The general thing I think will be basically every rejection actually should be a source of motivation.
That's right. Yeah.
Rather than it being something which is negative. I can think back, I'm sure you guys can as well. I had a pile of rejection letters, and actually somewhere I've still got a folder, and I deliberately kept them, because your temptation is you get this one line standard kind of rejection letter, which they probably just change the name on this organisation and send it out to you. And I remember it started to get me down, because after a while you're thinking, subhanAllah, how many months has it been? I've got bills coming in, whatever, I've got to get a job soon. So actually you use that as a motivation. So I'll put them down and I'll file them away, inshallah, and eventually I know I'll keep plugging away, those job offers will come, inshallah. So that's the way to look at it. Be motivated, make every effort and keep plugging away. Don't give up, be very focused, inshallah. It's very important. And of course now, I would say it's easier. Alright, so, and again, I always very cool about giving away my age. By now, the listeners, you probably have an idea that I'm not exactly spring chicken, inshallah. And here's another hint on that, because when I was applying around for jobs, especially my graduate jobs, it was pretty much manual stuff. So it wasn't the email or anything like that. You had to manually write in, with a pen, sit there, fill in application forms, and typically you get to the end and you make a mistake, you have to get another copy and start again. Or you have to find a printer, print out a CV, write a cover letter, and send it off. It was that time, and that was quite hard work, and even then you have to plug away. Now, I mean, it's easy, isn't it? Surely emails and online websites where you can just upload CVs, is that right? I mean,
I'm not going to give away my age here, but I'll say, when you're at school, they always used to say your handwriting has to be really good, because when you apply for a job, they're going to check your handwriting. But like you said, nowadays it's a lot easier. You've got email and you've got word processors which
very easy, very
do all the
easy.
spell checking for you and the grammar checking.
Yeah, you can use the same basic template and modify it, and it makes it much faster, the turnaround time for you to apply as well. So there shouldn't really be an excuse. And also the other thing I would say is the time that you do have. So while you maybe getting these rejection letters and it's getting you down, don't let it get you down, and use that time to say, okay, actually, because I'm still looking to apply, I'm still carrying on applying, I haven't got a job yet, I'll use that time to increase my skills. Okay, it's perfect. So they don't have to be official courses, you know, you may be unaffordable, but things like, basic things like maybe improving your spelling, your grammar, maybe your typing speed, these are all things that you can do, and you don't need any special equipment to do that either. So these are some tips that are worth looking at. But look guys, I mean, we've been talking about this for a good half an hour or so. It was meant to be a very general discussion. We got quite deep into it, I think. Maybe we've just been burnt too often ourselves in past minutes. Too many rejections that the pundits can collectively talk about. But anyway, battle-hardened, we've been through it, we've given you some general tips. But hey, if you're listening to the show, then alhamdulillah, as we've said, we've just talked about it in general terms. There are actually a lot of different sources you can go to, lots of websites, whether it's recruitment or otherwise, and they give some very good careers and jobs advice. They give tips and tricks for your CV, for interview techniques and everything, so use them. Today, as I said, was just to highlight a few things in general. inshallah. So 95.6 One Ummah Radio, you're listening to us inshallah on the Armchair Punditz, and we're going to now expand the discussion and get beyond the specifics of job applications and talk about some other issues related to work. Okay, so first off, somebody who has now succeeded, has got that dream job in the office, wherever that is, what kind of workplace issues should they be aware of? And actually, it's a little bit loaded, that question, because I'm actually going to give the answer. The first answer for me would be office politics. Is that a reality? Does that exist?
Yeah.
Okay, Amber's nodding his head. Go on, elaborate a little bit on that.
I think people got their set ways of doing stuff, cultures of certain ways of doing it. They expect you to fit in straight away, and if you disagree with something they do, they find it really, they can get really funny with you. Suddenly they're not talking to you, they should be talking to you, sort of thing. So there's a lot of politics involved, and there's a lot of hidden stuff as well, which goes on, which you could be direct or could be indirect, but like politics, it can be a nasty thing, very nasty thing.
I agree with Amber there. It could, especially if you're a newbie going into a team that's got people that have been there for a very long time.
Right.
Some people get set in their ways. They have their breaks at a certain time.
Okay.
They have their seat they sit in. They might be a bit less receptive to a newbie.
Right.
Which, alhamdulillah, I've been very lucky. I've never had that situation.
Okay.
But I have heard of it in, not going to label a factory environment, but you do find it happens in some factories or some manual working places.
So sadly there is going to be some office politics, and I guess that's an extension of the fact that in society anyway you're going to have, a bit of gossip and people talking about these kind of things in any environment, forget about work environment. What advice would you give to somebody then? I mean, how do you best tackle that? Is it a case of be very mature in the way you deal with people, especially when you're new to a place?
Yeah.
And do you get the knives out and say, well, right, that person's I'm going to sort them out, or do you just try and ignore it? What's the best approach?
I think if you look at any line of work, when a new person comes in, people feel threatened.
Right.
They don't know you as a person. They feel that their position could be in jeopardy because you're coming in.
Gotcha.
I think you need to be very professional, very mature how you deal with them, how you talk to them as well, because you need to analyse them as well,
right,
what they're like, because you can be so open with them and find out they're actually going to backstab you. So you need to be playing it in such a way, a professional manner, a mature manner, get to know them. Once you get to know them, obviously slowly let your guard down a little bit, but not too much. But you need to analyse how the whole work environment is, because people obviously would judge you from what you are, and if you come across very professional, very mature, then they'll be reluctant to actually say anything to you, sort of thing.
Right.
But when you let your guard down, then people can, especially in a new environment, the knives are already out for you, the guns are already there loaded to knock you down.
Okay, but I would say there's good. Lots of things that go on, right? The best thing I would say is actually don't get involved.
Yeah.
Surely, be aware of it. You've got to be aware of it, especially if it directly impacts you. Okay. And there may be some maneuvering that happens. The thing is, we're talking about this, and I hope this is not building up a very negative picture. We're just talking about some realities that exist. So don't feel as if this is a big issue. It does happen time to time. Sometimes it happens if people are under the cosh, right? It's performance issues, targets are being missed or whatever. The issue, I think, is you've got to be, because obviously in general terms we will display the Islamic adab, right? You want to actually come across to show that me as a Muslim, I don't stoop to the level of getting the knives out and fighting, whatever. So I would say best thing is ignore it. But as you kind of said, be realistic, be aware of some of these things, right?
You can get dragged into a lot of the stuff as well, and I think you got to be wary of yourself. And obviously, I think just coming back from certain situations, what I've seen people change where they've gone into positions and they're not the same person what they were 3-4 years ago,
right?
And they become a bit more argumentative, a bit more they know it all, sort of thing. If they don't like you, sort of thing, they make things really hard for you. But what you got to believe in yourself, believe in the way you do your stuff, and inshallah it will work out well for you. But like you said, you can quite easily get dragged into it. Well, you think, you know what, they all do it, I'm going to do it as well. Then you play like that and play like that as well. But that's the situation. And maybe from my side of it,
sounds like that's a bit too experienced.
Very bad experience, yeah. But the thing is, it does happen, and when you're in a strong environment, I'm in sales, in car sales, and it can be very, very a nasty place to be sometimes, because it's a dog eat dog job. It's all commission based, and people, when you're doing well, people are there to gun you down. And so if something goes wrong, they're always after you, because in one sense of it, if I'm not selling, there's more base efficiency for them, sort of thing.
Yeah. So if you're a young up and coming budding car salesman,
don't come towards me.
I was going to say, and you're looking for some confidence. Well, don't come to Armchair, basically. All right, that's fine. Enough of the office politics. Other issues. Dress code. Any rights and wrongs there? Is it just based on where you work? What's the thinking there?
I've seen in the last few years the dress code and what you should wear has gone completely different. I remember when I first started, I'm not even that old, but I've been in the work environment about 10 years now, I think. And 8 years, and when I first started, it was shirt, tie, suit, shoes, they had to be shiny, you had to look good. But now people come in strolling with jeans, ripped jeans, t-shirts. I mean, they have dress down Fridays, which most big employers have nowadays. For people to wear that on work, in a normal day, I think it's got to a stage where people are not taking that care of about what they wear.
I completely disagree with that. Steam is coming out of my ears. I think the workplace, you should always look your best, professional. Now, I can't believe there's some organisations that let you go into work without a tie.
Yeah, they do. Well, I don't wear a tie, Shabbat. Sorry, I'm actually a bit used to you, but
it's gone down in my estimation.
But isn't it? Okay, in general speaking, right? General terms, I agree with Shujat, right? Things have changed, okay, because the culture before was very, shirt, suit, tie, etc. That was the way things were. I think now it's changed, but it also depends now specifically on your role.
Yeah.
Are you client facing? Are you not client facing? So actually before, it was quite common to find that initially it was the so-called, techies, like the nerds, the geeks, as an only organisation, not my personal opinion at all, because I used to be techie. And they were the kind of guys who first started kind of coming in and they were kind of without a tie, and then they go into jeans and t-shirt, whatever. And it was seen as this okay because they're technical. But now you find that other people, other departments, they're quite relaxed as well, because now the tie is gone. I mean, I've been working in sales for a number of years now, and before it was very much you had to wear a tie. Now it's quite common to not wear the tie, but you still have to be smart, especially if you're
I think there's different ways you could look at it. If you're working in office environment and you're not facing a customer, I don't think you need to be in that level of smart and tie, that kind of thing. Because you're best when you're relaxed. That's what I feel. When you relax, you can't wear a tie and wear a shirt, trousers, that kind of thing. It drives me mad. The only thing, I have unfortunately got away from my work, but what I've realised from my experience, people like to be dealing with people.
Right.
Not someone who's behind the desk, who's dressed up smart, and thinking, you know what, this person's out to get me.
People deal with people. When do you not deal with people?
It's a saying. What people do deal with people who they think, you know what, this person's the same wavelength as me. He's just like me, sort of thing. You mean if you're coming in to hi, all right, sir, being all sometimes you got to be professional to a certain degree, sort of thing. What I do, but you got to be yourself. You got to be in a relaxed environment where the customer. But it does work.
The thing is, there's always a reality to it. I mean, let's take an example. People deal with people, and you'll be relaxed. If I'm dragged up in front of a judge and my lawyer walks in boxer shorts and sandals,
exactly.
I would want him to.
Depending on the role, it's still
on the context. Exactly.
It's not saying you come as a judge or policeman, and you're in your Man United top on sort of your but they're specific. But I think in the office environment, when you're non-facing customers, I don't think it's an issue. I don't think it's a big issue. Or when you're facing customers, it's a different scenario if you're a bank manager, that kind of thing. But there's some cases in some related customer-facing roles, sometimes customers feel it's like the car salesman role. People feel, well, he's going to get me. It's like a half a daily situation. He's on that. And people think that. And the thing is, the customer side of it, they think, oh, he's out to get me, sort of. He's got his ties on. He's got nice shiny boots on. He's ready for me, sort of thing. But when they come in, when they see someone which is probably not so smart, because I'm probably not so smart at work, and I don't shade that often, sort of thing. Rough side of it. But for me, it's worked.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, it's me as well. So
I'll buy a car now, mashallah.
But Shabazz side of it, I don't know where he's coming from.
Okay, but that's what I want to hear. Shabazz, Shabazz, what is the issue with the tie?
It makes you feel and look more professional. You feel like, right, I'm going to work, I'm in my work attire, so...
Okay, so mentally, I can agree, you do feel smarter. Physically, you can't breathe all the time. What's the issue there? I mean, do you find it comfortable? Because
I find it as normal now. Right. Once you get used to it. I remember the interview I went to for my job. It was straight out of uni, I went to this job.
Right.
And naturally, because I've always worked in a job where you've had to wear a uniform.
Right.
School, I never had to wear a uniform. But in every work situation I've had to wear uniform.
He likes to be under the leash.
I mean,
he likes to be controlled.
And then what I feel is it splits your it makes you feel like you split your work life and your home life as well.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think that the rule of thumb is it really depends on your role and depends on your work environment and company, okay? Because this kind of change we've generally seen where things have got a little bit more informal than they used to be, that's actually been driven by certain, not just certain industries, but certain big companies, alright, software companies or whatever, who have decided that we should have a zone where employees feel more comfortable, and that's kind of then had an effect on wider society. So the real tip, I guess, would be if you're going into a new job, is go in there, be smart, be dressed, and then you will figure out and you'll find out what the rules are in your workplace and how you should dress, and that's the best way. And if in doubt, be smart.
I think that's what
but at the same time, for interview purposes, you need to create an image.
You
need to create an image. You need to be, when you're new at a job, you need to create an image. You need to be at the best as possible you can get.
Interview, yeah, absolutely, there's no doubt. I mean, interview, if you turn up Mr. Alchemies and try and pull the old cultural thing, it ain't going to work unless you've gone to the takeaway for a job or something. Basically, you ain't going to get it. So don't do something like that. We'll appreciate that, inshallah. Okay, third main thing I wanted to talk about was religion. From our perspective, from the Muslim perspective, so things like, the fact that I've got to pray at work, is it going to be an issue or not? Fasting, I'm fasting all day, should I tell the boss about that or not, because my performance will be affected? Food, because the company may say, guys, it's a Friday, we're going to order in lunch for everyone. Do they know that I halal bacon buddies or whatever? Are they and do they expect me to be involved in that? So quickly before you guys come in, question to you. Firstly, is there greater awareness about these cultural religious needs? And secondly, is it better for you to be more forthcoming or not on this?
It's better.
It's better? Okay, Shujat, go on.
Firstly, I think, as, moving on, 10 years ago, not 10 years, 50 years, you didn't have hardly any Pakistani or Muslims in the workforce, but now there's more and more of them. And then more people are aware that it was Eid, Ramazan.
Yeah.
We actually had the email out to say Eid Mubarak to our staff,
That's very good.
To our workplace, we've got such a diverse workplace, but I've worked in quite a few different areas, and people are becoming more aware of multiculturalism in the workplace, and they've actually made provisions for you to read your namaz. So not a namaz room, but a multi-faith prayer room, so anyone could go in lunchtime and read their prayer, or go and have a break and when they need to go and pray. So I found that people are more open to the fact that we are all different and we're not all the same, and people need to have their own space, need to enjoy their religion in the place of work as well, because it's not just seen as a place of work. You're spending most of your day at work, so if you're not comfortable there and you can't practice religion, then what kind of state are we living in?
I think what you got at the end of the day is to save yourself any problems down the line. I think you got to be honest with yourself, and you got to be proud. You got to be proud of what you are. And if you're Muslim, you got to say to them, Muslim. Well, it's like my work when I started 5 years ago. I said to him, look, I need a prayer room.
Yep.
I pray 5 times a day. So obviously, when by the time wears me 3 times, I need a room or somewhere I can pray. They said no problem.
Yep.
And mention about fasting as well, mention about I don't drink alcohol, that kind of thing, so what I can eat sort of thing, and people respect that. It's just that if you hide stuff from people and ask you why don't you do this, why don't you eat that, then it's like it's a situation, why didn't you tell us before? And I think again, but it also depends on what type of environment you're in as well.
Sure.
Where you are. And I think it's sometimes to be too open straight away may cause you problems.
Right.
Where then suddenly their guards are up and go, do you know what?
Yeah.
And especially with the things going on in the media and that kind of thing. And it's depending on where you work. From my side of it, I'm quite how it is. I'm proud of what I am, and I am quite honest with it. And be honest, you do sometimes get comments like anything. People will make comments about certain stuff. Something, especially when they're not sure about the religion. So
do you think, Amber, the issue is that people in that situation, brothers and sisters, are thinking, I've gone into a new job, or maybe it's an old job, and they haven't had that kind of discussion, if you like, or raise these things, precisely because they actually think it will cause the guard to go up, or it may cause people to look down on them, not just maybe their line manager, but other people who get wind of that as well, and so they actually feel uncomfortable and would rather not do that. Do you think, is that the fear factor? And it sounds like what you're saying.
It is a fear factor side. I think nowadays, especially when you're going with people like a lot of social activities, like they have even the work dues and that kind of thing, they go for their drinks and their meals and everything else. Obviously sometimes for our side of it, we don't actually drink or drink, but we go for the meal for them. When it comes to the other side of it, we'll pass sort of thing. And some people get offended with us, or we're a team, we should socialise with them, but at the same time, why should we compromise with something that we disagree with? But if people are genuine and they're your friend or your colleague, they'll understand that. The people who don't understand it, they're the ones that are going to get down anyway, so you can't do away with it.
It comes down to education again, doesn't
it? Does. I think maybe in the old days I can understand it. I would say that now it's pretty much an unfounded fear. I think if you go and approach employees now, they're willing to be flexible, and they generally will be, because at the end of the day, as you guys have said, they need employees to be happy and comfortable, and so as long as you're open with them and you're respectful, so don't go in there and start dictating from day on, right, this is what I want, I've got to do my namaz and I've got to have etc., but you're very diplomatic, you actually talk to them in the right manner. I think they will look to compromise because they'll balance their needs as a company and your needs as individuals.
But then also they've got laws in place as well, see, the equal opportunity as well, so in that sense of it, they got to be quite careful what they say to you as well. So really in theory the ball's in your court, as long as you're not too override demanding, that kind of thing, and not being too compromising.
Approach it as well.
And obviously if you talk to him in the right way, this woman needs it, can we come to some kind of compromise, instead of me taking an hour lunch, can't take 45 minutes sort of thing, and spend my time on the prayer time. I've got no problem with that, because they have the tea breaks, cigarette breaks, that kind of thing. But there is, a lot of people do play the system. If they don't like you, whether it's your colour, your skin, or your religion, or what you believe in, or where you look, or whatever sort of thing, people do whatever they can, and people look loopholes to get you out, whether it is equal opportunities or not. But what you got to do with your side of it is stick to your guns.
And actually, on that point, it actually helps, I think, as a little tip with negotiation, is actually be creative and go to the table and go through the discussion with solutions. Because if you're sitting there with your line manager and you're asking them to give you time for Jummah Salah, whatever, as Ahmed just said, this is a key point. If you've already thought about how, if you've seen it from their point of view, you've thought about how they can accommodate it by saying, for example, look, you know what, I will work an extra half an hour on a Friday evening because I think I need a longer lunch break. You'll find actually you've helped them solve the problem, so they're more amenable to that, inshallah. Okay. Alright, let's move away from workplace issues. Final few topics, inshallah. You're listening to the Armchair Punditz, so if you want to get involved as we get into the last few minutes of the show, the last 10 minutes or so, inshallah, feel free to do that. You've got the numbers, so I won't shout them out right now. Final few issues. Is there such a thing as a permanent employer anymore? So if these people, we've been giving advice to the listeners and people are applying and they're sending out jobs, should they think, right, once I've done it, alhamdulillah, sorted for life? Or is it the case that these days you're not really going to get that? It's not the old days where you sign up for a job and you could be there for 40 years, 30 years.
It's changed completely now with what it used to be. I think people now look at it, they get their foot in the door, especially if you're working in accountancy, that kind of thing. Once your foot's in the door, they actually go to bigger companies or set their own companies up. I think the time scale now averaging is about 3 to 5 years. At a place now, and I think, to be honest, I'm getting itchy feet in my place now, and I'm thinking, do you know what, it's time to move on. That's the big pay rise.
That's the best way.
It's what it is. I think people now feel claustrophobic, we're stuck in the same role for 30 years, 25 years, and once it's at the moment, I can't believe people have done certain roles for 30 years, because I couldn't do it physically, but at the same time as well, it's job satisfaction, and I think it's more pressures at work now and everything else, but changing scenery, that kind of thing, it can have its benefit, it can have its negatives as well, because if you've been somewhere new at a job, and if you can to be the first one made redundant. The longest person you're there, the less likely to make you redundant, less cost and less money. So there's all these things that implicate, but I think the lifespan of a job is probably between 3 to 5 years.
So that's the expectation generally. Is that the case in the public sector? Because people have a view that normally the jobs are for long, maybe not for life.
I think with the pensions, is the pension side of it. I think that before in the public sector, the pension used to be good. We got this pension and everything else. Now with the pensions all up in the air, people are not saying, "Oh, hold a second, we're not getting anything out of this now." That's what people just say is because of the pensions. Now with the pension game, and people, do you know, we need to get elsewhere and get some more money.
Okay, you seem to know a bit about the opposition now. But Sajjad, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm someone who just left the public sector.
I'm saying, guys, you're very open on the show. If you're a prospective manager listening into this, I don't know if we're going to get a few texts.
No, don't worry.
Go on, carry on.
The whole concept of, the job for life has kind of eroded in the last few years, and it goes in line with the recession and the current economic climate that we're in now. But when I had to go for my job again, I was lucky that it was a permanent job because we were getting re-assimilated to that role. Yeah. But when I left, all the jobs that got advertised were 1-year fixed-term contracts.
Right. Okay.
So most of the jobs now, if you go on jobs, on these websites, you'll see there'll be fixed terms for 1 year, and then they'll look at whether they need you or not, and then they'll renew it. And the point Amber made about the pensions, which is a key, one of the reasons why people did want to stay there was the pensions were great. The final salary scheme, which was brilliant, but not many people, will get that anymore, and you won't get that kind of pension. But it was also the work-life balance. The council were more accommodating to the kind of people that were working there. So, they understood that young families, and so you have to leave at certain times, are more flexible about those kind of things. That's why people stayed there. But now, with the current thrust of work, people are less likely to have that job for more than 2 years or 3 years.
Okay, Shabazz, did you?
I'm quite disappointed that this notion of job for life has gone now. Like I said, I've worked for some, and have still worked for some quite traditional businesses. I've only, in the 10, 11 years I've been working, I've only had 3 jobs, and I've always stayed at those jobs for a long time.
Okay.
I think as long as you are still contributing, you're not dead wood, and you've still got a job to go to, can't see why you shouldn't have a job for life. But again, like you said, we've never had a recession like this before, we've never had an economic climate like this before, not in our lifetimes anyway, so the job market is potentially forever changing now.
This may explain your earlier comments about having a short CV then, if you've been on the same job for the last 10 years or whatever, for example. But no, you're right. I think, that's a slightly different thing in terms of motivation, or maybe we can talk about that if we have time, about why you might want to change role. But in the general situation is that there isn't really such a thing as a job for life. What about the case where, especially for younger people, they would say they're a little bit confused. You take a job, maybe it is what you want to do, maybe it isn't what you want to do, but you take a job, you're involved in that, and you are still not quite sure if that's what you really want to do. You're not quite sure if that's the career you want. Is that unusual, or is it quite normal for a lot of people to chop and change as they get older? Not just the particular job role, but actually even the career path and switch.
I think at the moment, when you just qualified or just got your degree, I think you're in a situation you're still not 100% sure exactly what you're going to do. And the thing is, if you look at the industry as well, a lot of people have got a certain degree that end up going into a complete different field. And it doesn't end up work. I think in the early stages, you are in that situation where you do think, you know what, should I go here, should I go there? Actually, this is not for me, I need to move on, sort of thing. And people do have midlife crisis as well. Do you know what, I had enough of being IT tech, and I want to get a complete different direction. I want to get into teaching. So people can physically change all the time. But sometimes people, like you said, if the comfort zones are there, and they're happy with the job, it's a 9-to-5 job, it's easy, they're not working too hard, sort of thing, money's coming in, and they've got a lot of flexibility, nice holidays, that kind of thing, and good bonuses, and people think, you know what, I'm happy here, I'll go to work, leave work, go home. But some people, it's not enough.
But I think the reason I'm asking the question is it unusual or not? And I would say it isn't unusual, and I would say from a point of view of reassurance. So if you're quite young and you're not sure what you want to do, don't feel that you need to make your mind up now. Actually, in a way, you do the job you're doing. If you find it's not right,
it's experience.
It's experience, and there's no harm in trying something else.
Yeah.
And again, you might find that whatever else you try still isn't right, and you chop and change until you get to something which.
But you've got to be very careful.
You have to be careful. Weigh up the risks. Yeah. Okay, I agree with that. Weigh up the risks. Be careful. Don't just change for the sake of it. Do proper research before you make that.
Because in that situation, you get too fussy.
Yeah.
When you get fussy, you will never find the right job. Because some people want the perfect job.
Yeah.
What is the perfect job? I got a degree in this. I really want to do that. But then it's like that job will probably never come along, sort of thing. Or there might be a handful of those type of jobs.
Yeah.
And normally those people who got the jobs end up staying in those jobs until they retire, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the people who are next in line are probably the ones who've been training up to come to this position.
Yeah.
So the place is ready-made. So if there's been people who incidents where I know through friends who actually are waiting for a job and they got qualification, their names are so long, where they got degree after degree after degree, and they're thinking, do you know what, I'm waiting for the right job. And they my age now, was it 21? And so in that sense of it, you can imagine it can go for never and ever and ever. But then it's like you need to be something compromising. You think, you know what, I need to go for something and work on other avenues, but you may not get the job what you want.
No, that's true, and you've got to be realistic, but I think you have to look at yourself and make a decision and say, okay, do I want to try something else? And then with proper planning, you can minimize any potential risk, and inshallah you try something else and it works for you. But this is something you don't feel that it's unusual. It does happen. People do change their careers and change their jobs. So that's not a major issue. And also, actually, not just changing jobs, changing location. I mean, these days people say the world's a global village. Plenty of jobs available globally, maybe Middle East, maybe you want to go to Australia for a couple of years. People do that, not a problem. Inshallah, down there. I know myself. I'm scared of it. Anything venomous that moves lives in Australia. So that's a proper term for me. Believe me, that's a little spider in the bathtub I'm out. So that's not a place for me to go, inshallah. Alright, we're going to wrap up the discussion, inshallah. Last couple of things. Obviously, we've been talking about careers and jobs. There are some red lines. We know about that, inshallah. So look, Islam puts down, gives you plenty of flexibility, but it puts down some red lines as well. So look, don't turn up, take a job as a bartender and go home and tell Ummi and Abuji or become a bartender or whatever can happen, right? Don't do something stupid like that.
That's the job.
Generally, no, the general thing is, it makes sense when you're applying around. All the other things that you're doing, all the other preparation, do have a quick 5 minutes to think about that role itself, picture yourself in it, and will you be in a position where you may have to compromise some of your values, because prevention is better than cure. So if you know that that is an issue for you, it's a problem for you, don't go down that route, inshallah. Very last question to the pundits as we wrap up the show is there such a thing as a typical up-and-out job now? Alright, now why am I saying that? Because look, obviously the elder generation, when they came here, unskilled labour, so understandably they came here, they were working in the factory,
it's still there, bro. It's still there.
I've obviously got to do this. Let me finish the question before you come
in. To the union.
So elders came, factory, understandable, but now we talk about the youth and a bit more educated and whatever, but I do still find there is a little bit of stereotyping, and I'll tell you what I mean by this, right? So a lot of people look in the community and say, a lot of the upgrade is the taxi na come here, or is the takeaway in the restaurant, or is the doctor. Is that those stereotypes? Is there any merit in that? Do they really? Should they exist? Do they exist? I mean, what's the situation?
You think so? It's part of our culture. It's part of way of doing it.
Our culture to drive taxi.
It's one situation. People think it's the easiest way option for them, but there are people actually getting away from that side of it. You got them who are actually not coming taxi drivers and coming counsellors now. So there's. Moving up the ladder.
I should point out the official radio station view, we have no issue with taxi careers. Formagators actually, just so you know, this is the pundits having a bit of a laugh, inshallah. But my point really is, I mean, so people look at and say, oh, there's a lot of Pakistani or Muslim youth and they go into IT, or they go in and they become doctors, you go into ER, and a lot of them are foreign doctors. So I mean, it's not a bad one, a positive or a negative. I'm just saying, is that a valid view that we maybe do have a disproportionate amount of our community working in certain roles? And again, it could be because it's a comfort zone, it could be because other people have done it and it's easy to get into. I don't know. Is that a fair point?
I think the roles we probably need to get out, because we got not enough doctors and that kind of thing. We need to get people more in the sports side of it, on the health roles and that kind of thing. I think on the sports activities, on athleticism, we need to actually get them more involved in that. But on doctor side of it, I think we're creaming that. The taxi that we're cleaning that. All the shops we were cleaning to test their camera.
So we've done well in those areas. Any final comments, Shajat, Shabazz, you guys want to come in before we wrap up the show and finish off?
No, I think we're going to have a lynch. The mob's going to lynch us outside as we ambulance come out.
Is there a back door somewhere?
That's right, yeah. I'm not going to get a taxi home tonight. Luckily, Ahmed's brought his car down, so we'll be fine, inshallah. You've been listening to the Armchair Punditz. This has been another crazy show, inshallah. Jazakallah khair for bearing up and listening, and if you manage to do that for the whole hour or so, that'll be online. But keep it locked on 95.6 One on the radio. As I said, we are back on our regular slots. So that means, inshallah, 2 weeks from now, assuming you're listening to a repeat, if the director ever decides to put us on a repeat after some of the things we've been talking about today. But inshallah, on Mondays, every 2 weeks, we'll be back on. We'll have some more topics up for grabs, some more discussion, inshallah. As always, we value your interaction. But keep it up for now. Jazakallah khair for your attention. Jazakallah khair to the Pundit. Assalamu alaikum to you brothers, inshallah. See you next time. And assalamu alaikum to listeners. See you next time, inshallah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.